क्या आप IAS की तैयारी कर रहे हैं और कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स को 2.5 लाख तक की फीस नहीं पे करना चाहते? अगर हाँ, तो 22,500 रुपए में घर बैठ के StudyIQ के पेनड्राइव कोर्स के साथ आप IAS की तैयारी कर सकते हैं। आज ही विजिट करें StudyIQ.com।
Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the Yes Bank issue. Recently, the Reserve Bank of India, the banking authority in our country, has ordered that the CEO and the managing director of the Yes Bank, Mr. Rana Kapoor, must leave his post at the end of January. So, it has created concern for the Yes Bank. With this order of the Reserve Bank of India, the market value of shares of the Yes Bank has come down. Also, it has affected the investors. So, we will analyze what are the reasons for this order of the Reserve Bank of India that the CEO and MD of the Yes Bank should leave his office by the end of January 2019. We will also see how this order has affected the investors of the bank. We will also analyze the history and journey of the Yes Bank since its establishment. We will also analyze the policy reflection of the Reserve Bank of India and the status of public sector banks compared to the private sector banks like the Yes Bank or Axis Bank. So let us start. First of all, let us analyze what was the news or what was the current affair. The Reserve Bank of India, as you all know, it is the monetary authority or banking authority in the country. It is the apex bank of the country which regulates all other commercial banks in the country. The Reserve Bank of India recently ordered that Mr. Rana Kapoor, he is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer and the Managing Director of the Yes Bank. Yes Bank is a private bank and according to the RBI order, Mr. Rana Kapoor, the CEO and the MD of the Yes Bank should leave his post at the end of January 2019. So, this came as a response to his seeking to the Reserve Bank for a 3-year extension till August 31st, 2021. So, the CEO and MD of the Yes Bank, Mr. Rana Kapoor, had seek the Reserve Bank of India for an extension of his post for again another 3 years, and as a reply to that, the Reserve Bank of India ordered that he must leave his office by the end of January 2019. Remember that he was in this post for the last 14 years. So it is after the 14 years of his in charge, he is going to leave the office in the end of January. We are not sure whether he will leave or not, but according to the RBI order, he is not permitted to continue. We will analyze this issue in detail in this lecture. Before we move into the impact of this order, let us first of all understand what was the journey of the Yes Bank since its inception. So, we will start from Mr. Rana Kapoor. Mr. Rana Kapoor, he was a banker in many foreign banks in Asia, including the Bank of America. Bank of America is a very renowned bank. So, he even worked in Bank of America. So, he was basically a banker. And remember the Narasimham Committee recommendations of 1991. The first committee of Narasimham, which had recommended for the liberalization of India's banking sector and privatization of Indian banking sector. So, one important recommendation of Narasimham Committee which was set up in 1991, the first Narasimham Committee was that the banking sector of Indian economy should be liberalized. More private banks and foreign banks must be permitted to start operations in India. So, this recommendation was accepted by the government, and from 1991 onwards we have seen a liberalization of the banking sector in the economy. So, Mr. Rana Kapoor was one person who benefited from the liberalization of India's banking sector. So, when the government decided to liberalize the banking sector and issue more licenses to the private sector and also the foreign banks, Mr. Rana Kapoor also applied for a license and he won a banking license in the year 2003. Remember that in the year 2003, only 2 licenses were issued by the RBI. One license was issued to Mr. Rana Kapoor and his brother-in-law. So it was a partnership. So Mr. Rana Kapoor partnered with his brother-in-law and he won one of the only 2 licenses that were issued in the year 2003 by the Reserve Bank of India. So Yes Bank was established after 2003 when RBI issued a license to Rana Kapoor and his brother-in-law. And if we look at the growth of the Yes Bank, we will see that the growth was so rapid, and one important factor that accelerated the growth of Yes Bank was its corporate lending. So they had a policy of aggressive corporate lending. Most of its loans were provided for corporates, and it was through the corporate lending the bank had a rapid growth. And in the year 2008, Mr. Rana Kapoor's brother-in-law, who was a partner in the bank, he was killed in the Mumbai terror attacks. So after his death, Mr. Kapoor's control over the bank had strengthened. And of course, he was a very good director because he was able to take the banks to heights. So his control strengthened after 2008. But the last 4 years, if we look at the banking industry, the industry itself is affected by mounting NPAs, weak governance, etc. So there are many issues in the banking industry in the past 4 years. So in the last 4 years, Mr. Rana Kapoor's Yes Bank also was affected by corporate default. Why? Because we have seen that one of the major policies of the Yes Bank was to lend to the corporates. So their corporate lending rates were high, and therefore the corporate default levels also went up in the last 4 years. But the Yes Bank was not ready to reveal the extent of its asset quality problems with the RBI. So RBI, as an apex monetary institution in the country, who monitors every banking institution in the country, and remember, Yes Bank had issued license from the RBI, so therefore it is accountable to the Reserve Bank of India. But what happened with the Yes Bank? They were not ready to reveal the extent of its asset quality. Asset quality means the quality of its loans, whether they are bad loans or stressed assets or whatever it is. The quality of the assets should be properly revealed to the Reserve Bank of India, but they were not ready to reveal the extent of its asset quality or the extent of its bad loans to RBI, and therefore it came under the scrutiny of the Reserve Bank of India. And since Yes Bank was under the scrutiny of Reserve Bank of India, RBI found out that the Yes Bank has underreported its bad loans. That means it has not revealed its extent of bad loans, or it has underreported, and it was by 106.7 billion rupees. So there was an underreporting of bad loans by 106.7 billion rupees. And for that matter, the Reserve Bank of India had fined Yes Bank for rupees 60 million. Rupees 60 million fine was imposed from the Yes Bank by the Reserve Bank of India. But even though all these things has happened, the bank's market value was very high. It is a young bank, started only after 2003, but the growth rate was very rapid. Because of all these reasons, the market valuation continued to climb over the past 2 decades. So this is in short the journey of Yes Bank. Now, the Reserve Bank of India has ordered that Mr. Rana Kapoor, who is the CEO and the managing director of the Yes Bank, should not continue in his office after January. So how would have been the investors responded to it? It is a delicate situation for the investors in the Indian financial market because there is increased uncertainty. The Reserve Bank of India as well as the government is coming up with new orders, new proposals in the banking industry, and it creates uncertainty. Remember, it was only recently that the government had ordered for an amalgamation of 3 public sector banks, the Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank, and also the Vijaya Bank. So it was also a sudden proposal. So this creates an uncertainty in the financial sector or in the banking sector. And in case of Yes Bank also, there is that uncertainty. The investors are not sure who will be the successor of Rana Kapoor. So it creates an uncertainty among the investors. And as a response to this order of the Reserve Bank of India, the shares of the Yes Bank fell 29%. The market value of the banks has suffered. We have seen that despite all these issues, it was put under the scrutiny by RBI. There were mounting defaults in the corporate lending, because even despite of all these issues, the market value of the Yes Bank was very high. But with this order of the Reserve Bank of India, the market value of the bank has come down and the shares fell 29%. Even though the Reserve Bank of India has not explicitly stated the reasons for this move, the main reason for this move is that under-reporting of bad loans. Reserve Bank of India had found out that the Yes Bank has under-reported its bad loans by almost 106.7 billion rupees, and this under-reporting of the bad loans is the first and the foremost reason for such an order issued by the Reserve Bank of India. So it is trying to tighten its policies. It is tightening its regulations over the other banks. Now, other reasons are weak compliance of the Yes Bank, weak governance which has led to mounting of corporate loan defaults. Wrong asset qualification is also another reason. So, because of all these reasons, the Reserve Bank of India has ordered the bank's MD and CEO, Mr. Rana Kapoor, to leave his office by the end of January 2019. Now, is it the only incident or was there any similar move in the past in the banking sector? Yes. 5 months ago, the Reserve Bank of India had made a similar move with Axis Bank also. Axis Bank is also another private sector bank, and the Reserve Bank of India has forced the CEO of Axis Bank, Shikha Sharma, to leave the office by the end of this year. So it is not the only order that is issued against a private bank. Earlier, the Reserve Bank of India has done the similar thing. Earlier, the Reserve Bank of India has done a similar move against the Axis Bank also. So we will understand that the Reserve Bank of India is being tight with its regulations, and the reason for such an order issued to the Axis Bank was also under-reporting. So we understand that under-reporting of the bad loans or quality of assets is taken seriously by the Reserve Bank of India from these two incidents. Now, what is the policy reflection that we get from Reserve Bank of India such orders? The RBI's determination to impose tough measures to force banks to disclose and resolve their bad loan problems are very much evident from such moves. That means the RBI, which is the apex bank of the country, who monitors the banking system of the country, it is determined to impose tough measures. That is, they are going to take serious actions against banks. One reason is for disclosure of the bad loans or the quality of assets, and secondly, only if there is proper disclosure, the bad debt problem can be resolved. So bad loans or NPAs must be resolved. So if a resolution has to take place, the quality of the assets must be disclosed. So for this, the Reserve Bank of India is taking tough measures against private banks and also public sector banks. Now, if we compare the status of public sector banks with the private sector banks in case of bad loans, we will see that the status of the public sector banks are worse than the private banks because they account for 2/3 of the bank assets. And as a solution for this mounting NPAs in the public sector banks, the government has promised consolidation in the sector. In public sector banks, majority of the share is held by the government. So public sector banks are government owned banks, and the government has promised consolidation in this matter. Under consolidation, one solution is that larger banks will gain economies of scale, and therefore government is going for amalgamation or merger. We have already seen two mergers. One is the merger of the SBI with its associates, and now the government has recently proposed the merger of Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank and the Vijaya Bank. So through this mergers and amalgamations, the government is trying to create larger banks which can make utilization of the economies of scale. And secondly, through this amalgamations and mergers, large banks will be able to absorb smaller banks or underperforming banks. In the example of recent proposal of amalgamation of Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank and Vijaya Bank, we will see that Dena Bank was underperforming and it is also a small bank. So when this bank is adopted or absorbed by the other two banks, what will happen? The amalgamated entity will be more competent and the performance also will improve. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page. Thank you.
क्या आप IAS की तैयारी कर रहे हैं और कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स को 2.5 लाख तक की फीस नहीं पे करना चाहते? अगर हाँ, तो 22,500 रुपए में घर बैठ के StudyIQ के पेन ड्राइव कोर्स के साथ आप IAS की तैयारी कर सकते हैं। आज ही विजिट करें StudyIQ.com।